To this point, we've been talking mostly about species in which males compete in one of several different ways for reproductive access to females, and the females don't have a great deal of ability to control which males end up having access to them. But there are species in which females have considerable agency. That is, they have the possibility to choose among several to many potential mates without their choices being dictated by the outcome of interactions among the males. In such species, the males are often ornamented, as we saw in the opening slides, sometimes spectacularly, and females seem to prefer males with brighter, more elaborate, or more symmetrical ornaments. Why should they care? That's our puzzle. One hypothesis that's popular nowadays is that brighter or more talented or more symmetrically oriented, beautiful males might have better genes, and that the females could be getting a benefit that way for their offspring. But the patterns are subtle and sometimes involve both sexes. For example, both male and female barn swallows, pictured here, have elongated outer tail feathers, these forked tails, but males have longer tails than females do, and these distributions from the textbook show that although the ranges are largely overlapping, males have significantly longer tail feathers than, on average, than females do. Males in these species often put considerable time and effort into displaying themselves in addition to being beautiful. And yes, these displays are costly, which is interesting and relevant to any possible explanation we might want to come up with. A nice example, again from the textbook, comes from a study by Sarah Pryke and Stefan Anderson on red-collared widowbirds, in which the authors shortened the tails surgically of randomly selected males and left others intact, and then watched how the male's body condition changed over a couple of months of territory maintenance. And the answer was that the males with artificially shortened tails maintained substantially better body condition than control males. So the unmodified, natural, fully intact males were paying a big price physiologically for carrying around those long tails. But the healthier tail-shortened males paid a big price in reproduction. They attracted many fewer nesting females into their territories. And this is a species in which females can decide where they want to set up their nest, and males defend suitable nesting territories. All right, so there's the trade-off in a very easy to appreciate and very convincing form. So the males are doing things that are costly, increasing their risk of predation perhaps, and just wearing them out by demanding more calories, more time, just more effort. So why would females prefer males that make expensive displays? Well, again, here's the better genes hypothesis. Hard to prove, but it is logically attractive. So here's a remarkable experiment, again from the textbook, so you can read the details there, involving gray tree frogs, Hyla versicolor, a species you may be familiar with. They occur in North America, and if you know them, you know they sing long, loud, and difficult songs, even though they are small little frogs. And in this experiment, which is too complex for me to take time to walk us through all of it, and please look in the book and see what the authors did. But basically they first showed that the females really do prefer males who sing long, fast calls, and they showed this with playback experiments where they recorded calls to females and asked which speaker did the female move toward, the speaker playing a shorter, less loud call, or the speaker playing a longer, louder call. And the answer is that the number of pulses per call strongly predicted this phonotaxis score that they used to describe how inclined the females were to move to a loudspeaker playing a particular call. All right, so the females like the long, fast, loud calls. But here's the part that is mind-blowing. The experimenters then carefully controlled the fertilization of eggs, taking an egg mass from a female, dividing it into two piles, fertilizing half with sperm from male who sang long, loud calls, and the other half with sperm from males who sang shorter, less complex, not so loud calls, grew the tadpoles up, and then compared their fitness on high food with a good diet and a not so good diet. Whoops, sorry, let's go back. And they found that indeed the tadpoles from the fertilized by sperm from the long calling males showed better growth and survival in this experiment than did the tadpoles from the short calling males. Truly remarkable. I wouldn't have predicted that the effect would be large enough that you could detect it in such an experiment, but they did. So there it is, a great big piece of evidence in favor of the good genes hypothesis, and that is in these frogs about the only thing females could be getting from males, because the males don't defend nests or anything like that. There are, of course, many species in which males do provide benefits of various kinds, and there is still display. So in these hanging flies, females choose mates on the basis of gifts that the males have captured and offer to the females. They catch an insect prey. When they've got one, sit on a twig, release a pheromone that's species specific and situation specific. The females smell it. They come over and approach, check out the male and his gift, and if they accept the prey, they eat it and copulate with the male, and continue copulating as long as it takes them to eat the prey. And it is the case that the duration of copulation in nature is positively related to the size of the prey that the males bring, and in the lab the experimenters showed that time of copulation is directly proportional to the number of sperm transferred. So females are, as it were, metering their acceptance of the mate quantitatively as a function of the display and gift of prey that he could make for them. This principle seems to work in sex-reversed species as well. Here are the pipefish again, a different experiment involving male choice of females. The experimental setup, which we're viewing from the top, is an aquarium in which the male can swim back and forth and see through a one-way mirror into the tanks where two different females are living. The females can't see each other. There's an opaque screen between them, and they can't see the male who's inspecting them because they can't see through the one-way mirror. And the result of experiments done, as you'll see in a moment, with females that differ quantitatively, suggests that the male pipefish definitely prefer to hang out with and presumably mate with and accept eggs from females that are larger, showier, and apparently parasite-free. So these were choice experiments evaluated by just asking how much time did the male spend in front of each female. So they liked females who were larger, overwhelmingly, right, 9-1. They hung out with the larger female. Female skin fold is another, apparently a measure of female condition. They liked the large skin fold qualitatively over the smaller one. And they did not like spots on the female caused by a parasite that this species carries. There was a big, like 3-1 preference for females with fewer spots. That gave the experimenters the idea of giving females virtual parasites by tattooing fake parasites onto them, and it worked just as well, at least, as fake parasites as real parasites. So this again is a species, as we said, where females make eggs faster than males can brood and hatch them. So female reproductive success is limited by access to males. Are males choosing females for traits that signal better than average genetic quality? It's certainly a tempting conclusion. This doesn't prove that it is, but the previous experiment makes that at least seem plausible. Now, what about us people? You may be, squirming a bit, wondering how this applies to us. We are, of course, modestly, but not hugely, dimorphic for size and for many other traits. The people who study us and our evolution and behavior admit that the pattern of sex differences and studies of behavior do suggest that we have a history of male-male competition and female choice in our past. Both have been, and in various ways continue to be, significant processes, but they're definitely not extreme by the standards of other animals. Here are some data from contemporary societies. For example, this again is from the textbook, showing that in a study in Poland, men with children at all were taller than those without children, controlling for age. And on the right, these panels show that Yanomamo men who have killed other men. The Yanomamo are a famous group of somewhat ferocious hunter-gatherers who live in the Amazon, I think mostly in Venezuela. Anyway, men in this study who had killed other men in their life ever had more wives and more children than those who had not. So that certainly relates some measure of here and now reproductive success to competitive behavior. But it is important to emphasize that we people are different from other animals in having huge effects of culture on our behavior, and we change our cultures constantly. Even during, say, my lifetime, the environment that permits and encourages or doesn't permit and discourages various kinds of behavior changes, can change dramatically, does so, has done, is doing, and so on. Okay, so in summary, in most species with sexes, male, and even those that are hermaphroditic, like many plants, female and male reproductive success ends up being limited by different factors, and that's just an inevitable consequence of how offspring are made. The female reproductive success typically being limited by access to resources of various kinds that they need for, as mothers, for parental investment to make ecologically viable offspring. Male reproductive success, on the other hand, is typically limited by mating access to females, the ones doing the investment, because in most species, males do not do at least very significant investment in offspring, although in many other species, males make very significant investment in offspring, and again, it's worth always pointing out that ours is one of those. This asymmetry gives rise to male-male competition and or to female choice, these two forms of sexual selection, with intensities that absolutely and relatively depend on many details of the species ecology and are review of cases was meant to make that point, that there aren't just a few syndromes. There are really gradients and other qualitative variations on the patterns depending on how the species actually lives, where it lives, all of that, and its evolutionary history. In species where females have the ability to select more or less freely among a number of potential mates, they do appear to be choosing on the basis of apparent genetic quality, at least in part, and also abilities to provide useful resources, again, depending on many details of the biology. In sex-reversed species, so-called, where males make the larger investment in offspring, females tend to be larger, showier, more aggressive than males because their reproductive success is, as the theory would hope, limited in what we might call a male-like way by access to mates, in this case access to males, more than by access to resources, since in those species it is the males that are providing the resources that limit the production of offspring. But I have put sex-reversed in quotes and male-like in quotes to emphasize that meditating on these cases helps clarify the way in which we use these words and attribute maleness and femaleness in our own species to various kinds of attributes, including behaviors. After all, in pipefish, it's male-like to be nurturing, right? And it's not quote unquote male-like. It is male-like. They are males, and that's what they're doing. And it's female-like to be, to run around aggressively courting males and so on. So anyway, there you have it, what we can learn about our own ideas about sex by studying other species, and we'll let this fantastic male frigate bird, you can tell he's the male, right, making this astonishing display with his bright colored skin to this female who just sits there saying like, oh, well, yeah, yes, okay. Well, she gets the last word. See you later.